Hello everyone, Christopher from China, Germany here. This time again with a review, and probably for the last time of this year, because I'm not sure if I can make the Lenovo Vibe X2 review till the end of the year. So what's this video about today? Well, it's the Doogee DG850 Hitman, which has been announced by Doogee recently, and it's actually a Xiaomi Mi4 clone. And every one of you knows that China don't really like clones, but this device actually was pretty surprising for us, and let me just tell you why in this review. Have fun. Well, things never change here, so let's start with the packaging as usual. And you can see right away that Doogee really has put some work into the design of this packaging, because let's face it, we are at the $140 level here, and this packaging really isn't like anything you would expect for $140. The printing quality is pretty high, the design is well made, and we even have multi-language product description on the rear, so that's really nice. We even have the CE sign for the Europe clients on here, so well, I really like that. I think it's impressive what Doogee is doing here. They are really improving their stuff from time to time. Let's open the packaging. What do we find inside? Well, and the high quality first impression really continues here. First of all, we have a little sheet of plastic stuff with a Doogee logo on top, which is basically protecting what's underneath it. Next we see, of course, the phone. Let's put that aside, we'll have a look at that later. Let's put this one out as well. Then we have a tool for removing the SIM card, which is actually a slot-in tray, and an adapter to use a nano SIM card with the micro SIM card slot inside this phone. We have a rear protection for the phone itself, which isn't something every manufacturer does deliver with this product, so that's pretty nice. It's pretty solid. We have a quick start guide with lots of pictures, and the most important stuff is described in here, again with the CE sign as the European regulations tell manufacturers to do it. And we have a screen protector. One of them is already applied on the screen, so this is a replacement protector on with a cleaning cloth. And next you see 3 nice compartments containing a wall-designed wall charger, again with Doogee logo, one flat micro USB cable which also has a Doogee branding on it, and the usual hands-free solution or headphones made by Doogee, which actually don't sound that good. Now, the packaging already was quite impressive considering this is a $140 budget phone, but the thing really goes on with the design. Well, the first thing I said when unboxing it was, wow, oh my god, what's going on? Because this phone really isn't unlike anything low cost from China I have seen so far. I mean, we know those little metal frames, but we don't know phones that are heavy, that have a solid build quality, that have a metal chassis, a really solid metal frame, a really high build quality like the real deal, especially not in the clone area. Just remember back, you probably hold a Xiaomi Mi4 in your hands, or if you didn't, you probably heard about how well this phone is built. It really features an outstanding build quality. It's heavy but not too heavy, and it feels really solid in its hands. And actually the Doogee DG850 as a clone feels almost exactly the same, and I think this is outstanding considering this is a clone device. They usually are really cheap phones which don't have anything in common with the original devices except the design. But really, Doogee really has done a great job here. This one feels even a little more solid than the real deal, at least that's my opinion, because the weight is a little higher at 169 grams. The original thing has probably 149 grams or something. And well, I don't need to talk lots about design, you all know this. Let's just continue with the build quality. Let's look aside. When taking closer looks at the design, we notice this is a clone because, for example, those little gaps here placed for improved reception quality, you feel them. With the original phone, you actually don't feel them. The rest of the design is pretty much identical. We don't notice any differences here except a missing status LED below the home button. Even the IR blaster is there and it's actually working and, well, pretty much as good as with the original Xiaomi Mi4. Looking at the rear, we notice that the phone is slightly thicker than the rear D because this bulge on here is, well, it's standing out a little more, pushing the thickness of the phone up to 1 centimeter, the camera included. So that's a little thicker than the original Xiaomi phone, but actually it doesn't feel bad in the hands. It actually improves the handling and the feeling of secureness in your hands, and I think it's not bad at all. The rear panel also looks pretty much exactly the same like the Xiaomi panel, but you can't replace them like with the real deal. If you try that, you probably destroy your battery because the battery is glued on here and inside the phone, which means you probably will destroy the wrapper of the lithium polymer cell and the phone might start burning, so you better don't do this. Another difference between the original Xiaomi Mi4 and the Doogee DG850 Hitman is of course the rear touch panel you see here. This is not a rear touch panel for gestures but for selfies. This basically acts as a button, as a shutter button for the front camera. When you're on front camera mode and tap this area for 1 second, the camera application will take a picture. So that's really neat and I like this feature. Well, that's for the design and build quality. Really impressive job Doogee has done here. Unlike the original Xiaomi Mi4, the Doogee DG850 Hitman features a 5-inch 720p panel, but it still has some goodies in place for you because this screen is manufactured by either Sharp or JDI. Now this means that we can expect an outstanding picture quality on the screen, and this really is the case. It's one of the best 5-inch 720p panels I have seen to date, and well, just look at this. The colors are really good, very intense. The picture is crisp and sharp, even though we only have 720p resolution. As you can see here, the single pixels are pretty much invisible, even if you come very close to the screen. The contrast is pretty much perfect. It's just a very good screen, no other way to describe it. Let's just have a look at some pictures. Where's my gallery here? I have some 4K pictures in place for you. You really can see the colors are really vivid. Everything is crisp and sharp. It's really a high quality screen, and it's a pleasure looking at videos and pictures on this panel. I really like this one. And also the viewing angles of the screen are perfect. Let me show you that. There is almost no reduced brightness, which is unusual because pretty much all screens have a reduced brightness when you look at them from such viewing angles, but simply not the case here. Just see everything. I really like that. And also the digitize is working very smooth. You don't have to put much pressure on it. As you can see here, there's no issues and also pretty much no input lag. Just a very little input lag, but almost not visible. So that's really the screen everyone would love to have in his low-cost phone, I think. Performance-wise, the Doogee DG850 probably isn't at the level you would like to have when looking at the spec sheet. Let's face it, we have a MTX 582 quad-core processor clocked at 1.3 GHz in here, which is a little outdated, I admit that, especially now as MediaTek has very cheap 64-bit processors in place, which are a real game changer in terms of performance and everything else. But you also have to admit that the MTX 582 still is a great processor for budget phones. It's still quite fast, I think, and enough to run even some games. That Trigger 2, for example, is running quite fine on it. So, well, that's not really the issue. The only really bad thing on here is the 1 GB of RAM. Doogee really should have put in 2 GB of RAM here, because 1 GB is just too old now. But well, those of you not into heavy multitasking probably are still fine with a 1 GB. So that being said, how is the real-life performance? Well, I have to say it's surprisingly good. We all know that the performance isn't only up to the RAM and the SoC, it's also up to the software, how well it's optimized, how much crapware is on there. And Doogee is really using a very clean Android 4.4 KitKat ROM on here, which has almost no crapware on it, and it's running pretty surprisingly smooth. Just look at this. There are pretty much no lags. It's just very responsive, and I like that. The lags really start when you start to do heavy multitasking, but everything else, single app mode, etc., is running perfectly smooth, and I don't have anything to complain about it. Even the older games are still working perfectly fine. And well, the benchmarks are reaching scores that are almost as high as it's possible with this chipset. So really, Doogee really has done a good job in optimizing this ROM. And it also features some very nice features like double tap to wake, which unfortunately doesn't recognize when you have the phone in your pocket. So that's a little downside of it. You also can draw letters on the screen to open an application, for example, an E for the web browser. As you can see, this is working just fine as well, and you even can do 3-finger swipe down to take a screenshot. That's also a really nice thing, which I would like to have in every single phone, because it's very useful, much better instead of the usual combo of volume down and power. Another thing this phone does support is MediaTek's Hotnot, so you can actually transfer data through touching screens of 2 phones supporting Hotnot together. So that's again a pretty nice thing. So I really like the software. Let's have a look at the performance in the performance demo. regarding the audio quality, I unfortunately can't tell you that much about that because this unit has a faulty headphone jack, so I wasn't able to test the audio quality through this one. What I can tell you though is about the internal media speaker, and as you can see, this one is really small and you really notice that. It has pretty much no bass playback, but it does sound pretty loud and doesn't distort at full volume, which definitely is a pro compared to a lot of other phones. So the media speaker definitely is usable, but it's nothing for serious music enjoyment as so many other times before. Let me just show you the quality of the speaker in a quick audio demo. Okay, the Doogee DG850 was pretty impressive till now, but what about reception quality? Well, this is a very important part and probably something you worry about because of all the metal around here. And let me tell you, if you worry, you are right to do so, because the quality of 2G, 3G signals isn't the best and Wi-Fi isn't the best as well. Let me tell you, it isn't anything that would make the phone totally unusable. But if you live in some area where the network development isn't on a high level, stay away from this phone. You might get into serious issues, and the same applies for Wi-Fi. If you have problems getting connected to your router all the time, stay away from this one. You will have issues with this. Let me just show you the Wi-Fi reception quality here. The router is right next to me, one wall in between, and I only have 2 bars. Most other phones have 3 to 4 bars, I'm sorry. So that's definitely a little limited, but still very usable. I didn't encounter signal losses here during my daily use, but sometimes it's really slowing down when I'm in the lower floors. So that's something you should know before purchasing this phone. What about GPS? Well, that's very important as well. And here the signal strength is limited as well, though not as significantly limited as with Wi-Fi. 2G and 3G, as you can see with this screenshot, I've done it outside. As you can see, we have not a very high signal strength, but it's still at an acceptable level. And as you can see, we've got a fix for 8 satellites here. In real life, this means navigation and everything is working perfectly fine, but the fixed times got a little longer, with up to 30 seconds or 20 seconds in average. So that's about reception quality. Now it's getting interesting as we are talking about camera. Doogee is promising a 13 megapixel OmniVision rear camera with an aperture of f2.2 and a 8 megapixel front camera with a wide angle lens. And well, let me tell you, the cameras did surprise me both. The rear camera is at a very acceptable level in my opinion. The pictures just for this price level are insane, let me tell you that. We are all used to those crappy cameras in cheap Chinese phones. This one really isn't as crappy as you would expect. It does create sharp images. They are not perfect, but you don't expect perfect pictures at this price level, let's face that. But what impresses me is the colors of the pictures and the contrast. It's perfect. They are just looking the way you want them to look like. And another thing is that the failure rate, meaning the pictures you have to delete after taking them because they look awful, is surprisingly low. It's one of the lowest rates I've ever had inside a low-cost Chinese phones. If any one of you had the Xiaomi Redmi 1S before, this is like the camera quality the Doogee DG850 features, and I think that's quite impressive. And what did also impress me is the night shot performance of this camera, which is totally unexpected for a low-cost device, let me tell you that. You can take pictures completely in the dark and get pretty much noise-free images, and this is something I've never ever seen before at a phone that only costs 140 bucks. I might sound a little too impressed now, but well, if something is impressing me, why shouldn't I tell you that? Let's face it, that's amazing. The camera simply is amazing. Well, there's a downside as well, as pretty much every cheap Chinese phone. The LED flash is just an emergency light. Well, that's pretty much always the case, so well, let's put that aside immediately. What's about the front camera? Well, this one isn't as good as the rear camera, but also still very usable and really usable as a selfie camera. It's not perfect, but it's really usable. At least that's my opinion. Guys, we already hit the last chapter before we come to the final conclusion about this phone, and that's, well, the battery as so often. We have a 2500 mAh cell in here, which is, well, a little larger than most MT6582 phones over there, often at 1750 to 2000 milliamps. Well, while the capacity really is good, the fact that you can't replace the battery isn't, but well, you have to live with that. And I think with the capacity offered here, it should live quite long, and thus it shouldn't be an issue, because the phone isn't quite expensive, and so it won't hurt you if the battery dies and you have to purchase a new phone. At least that's the way I think here. So what's about the real-life performance of the battery? Well, I was a little surprised, but not in a bad way, but in a positive way instead, because the battery lasts pretty long. 1 to 1.5 days are something you can reach easily without taking care about energy consumption. We all know these phones where you have to disable everything you don't need, where you constantly have to put the brightness level to the lowest level, where you have tons of applications installed to cut down the energy need as much as possible. This isn't simply necessary here. You simply put the brightness control on automatic, which works perfectly fine, and let the phone run, and it will last you the whole day if you don't spend the whole day gaming, of course, but you still can play some games, like half an hour Dead Trigger 2, and it will still last you the whole day, so that's not bad at all. Charging the battery takes 1.5 hours with a 2 ampere charger, and with the stock charger it takes around 2 to 2.5 hours. So it's a little longer, but acceptable in my opinion. We hit the final conclusion part. Well, what's my take about this phone? First of all, it's a clone. While this usually is a bad thing, in this case I have to admit that this phone impressed me, so it suddenly isn't anymore. Well, it is, but not for this phone. I make an exception here. So, well, should you buy this phone or not? Well, it depends. Let me tell you right away. This phone has impressed me, but it is not a perfect phone as with so many other cheap Chinese phones or clones. It has a few significant flaws. The first one and most significant one, of course, is the reception quality, which obviously could be better, and not for me, but probably for a lot of other people. It's the fact that we don't have dual SIM here, but just a single SIM slot, and the fact that this phone only has 16 GB of internal memory, which is non-expandable, guys. So yes, everyone carrying around all his multimedia files on his phone or has installed a lot of games, this won't be enough. Stay away from this phone. But on the other hand, we have to say the battery life of this thing is quite amazing. The screen is amazing, the build quality is amazing, the operating system is well optimized, the camera quality is on a very high level, and that's worth something actually. So those of you who can live with the aforementioned flaws really receive a full purchase recommendation from me. If they can live with the fact that they won't be up to date, because we don't have LTE here, we don't have 64-bit here, but all in all it's a solid phone for those who don't need more memory, no dual SIM, and who can live with the limited reception quality. So that's from my side. I say thanks for watching, and if you like what we are doing here at GIS China, make sure to follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook and Google+. Thanks again for watching. Over and out.